mic up. Thank you. Kia ora, everybody. And welcome back to our post-prandial korero. And I think there were a lot of those korero over lunch. It was very stimulating to see how the connections were happening. Mike, I'd love you to just come up here for a moment with me. I know I've sprung this on you, but Mike is going to be looking for... you don't want to? He's going to be doing funding for a new kind of vehicle that he's putting out there that is brilliant, and it's going to go public in a couple of weeks, isn't it? But I really wanted to tell a story that you've just told me about in design. You went to see, somebody from ex-Fisher and Paykel, and you asked for a bit of help on design, and now this person that you're talking to is coming up with incredibly innovative ideas for your business. And we were talking just in that little group about that is the essence of Kiwis. You just have, all you need is that match. And then there seems to be this spark that goes from one of us to the next. Sure, in this room there's an unusually creative bunch and an unusually high desire to make a difference. But I think if we all go out there as that match, as that spark, imagine how many other people we can light up. And you could see it over lunch. You could feel it. You could hear it in conversations. And that's what today is about. And that's what this annual electrifying conversations will be. And I thought, my God, electrifying really wasn't hyperbole. It really has been that this morning. So let's keep that going. Thank you for that anecdote. And I'm sorry to spring that on you.
That's right. I mean, I think the important thing about that was that the person wasn't associated with electric vehicles, but they could get the vision of the vehicle, and then they come from a totally different field and put some input into it, which then makes your proposition that much better.
Which enhances.
You would never have gone out, but they have to understand what you're doing first to be able to make a contribution. That's the they have to understand.
And that's the Kiwi way. We seem to be able to take an idea. A friend from overseas was saying many overseas countries are now following New Zealand in conservation, but they're not yet doing it in this electrification area. But I could see in a year that we're really being looked at. If we were given some more encouragement, more incentives, more sharing opportunities, more platforms like this to share ideas, the rest of the country would be starting to look at all of the little inventions that are coming together out of creative Kiwis. We seem to have that in our genetic DNA, I think. And it's from people like you who are a farmer for 25 years and you know how to invent stuff. I want to give him a bit of a push. Kiwi Goa, G-O-A, watch out for it in a couple of weeks. He's looking for some crowdfunding, and he's an interesting one of many, but he's a very interesting creative in this room. Thank you, Mike. And thank you to all for your input. From a real creative to an eco-superhero, Dr. Eva Håkansson is a Swedish mechanical engineer whom we're lucky enough to have working at the University of Auckland. And here I want to cut away and give a little bit of kudos to her husband, Bill. Bill, can you stand up? Bill, who came up to me at morning tea and said how proud he is of his wife and how much he supports her, and was telling me about her land speed record that she's planning to break next year. And of course I, being an enthusiast at heart, said, God, I'd love to ride in that. And he said, oh, you can. So could you stand up if you've got the goggles there? If you have a look at that, that's going to be passed around, and you can actually look at a 360-degree view from inside Eva's vehicle as she goes on the Australian salt flats. And I'll tell you the speed she's aiming to break next year. And it's incredible. You can see her, if you look down, you can see her handling the levers, and you can look back at her, you can look around at so you can have the experience right here in this room, and we'll slowly pass that around so everyone can subtly do it while Eva's talking. Her father was a champion Swedish motorcycle rider and a builder of vehicles in the 60s. Her mother, now in retirement, has taken up 3D engineering because everybody else in the family is an engineer and she needed to qualify somehow. So why not in that kind of family? And Eva's love of design, analysis, materials science, and project management extends, as I said, well beyond the building of vehicles to her pursuit for land speed racing. She has designed and built the world's fastest electric motorcycle, and with the original name Kilojoule, and also held the world title for fastest female for a number of years. I'm impressed you managed to catch it, Bill. For her, racing is really ecotourism in disguise. It's a way to get people passionate, as she is, about environmentalism and electrification. She wants to show that eco-friendly and sustainable technology can be fast, it can be furious, but most of all, it can be fun. And her latest venture, as I said, it's called Green Envy. It's a new streamlined electric motorcycle, not engine, electric motorcycle, and with it she's hoping to break the overall motorcycle speed record of, just let's pause and take this in. Any guesses how fast she might want to go? How fast would be really mind-boggling for you? Give me a number.
350.
350, 400, anything on 400? 700? Bit down, 605 k's an hour. I'm sure this time next year it might be 700 pounds. Just taken for a moment what driving at 150 k's an hour feels like. Not that we ever do that, 100 k's an hour. But imagine that, and then times it up to 605 k's an hour. That's extraordinary, and she's aiming to do that on the Salt Lakes in Australia in 2020, just next year. So to tell us more about her speed, her vision, her drive, her passion, somebody we're very lucky to have here in New Zealand, Eva Håkansson. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that introduction. I think you have said everything there is to say, so that's enough for me, I guess. Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Dee. Where's Dee hiding? There she is. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Do you want to come up here if you're not having to be by the speakers because you've got...
All right. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you everybody for coming and really working hard to make New Zealand a sustainable and wonderful place to be. So I often get the question, why New Zealand? So I left Sweden 12 years ago to marry Bill, who happened to be located in Colorado. So love brought me there. I spent a decade there, and then I dragged Bill to New Zealand. And why did we come here? Because it's really the place to be. New Zealand is the it country in sustainability. Tons of renewable electricity, the perfect place for electric cars. And then of course, Dee was here, and I knew her.
I actually bullied her into it.
So she did, yeah, she kind of did, and I temporary living quarters in Dee's guest apartment. We're still there 2 years later. So it's all Dee's fault that I'm here. But I'm not really here to talk about Dee, even if that would be lovely. I'm here to talk about electric racing and saving the planet at 400 kilometers per hour, or hopefully soon to be, when my headset gets back in place. Soon to be about 600 kilometers per hour. So I have a really cool hobby. What you see on the screen is the kilojoule. It's my addiction. A drug habit would have been way cheaper, but not nearly as good high. My day job, I teach engineering design, CAD, so computer-aided design and engineering drawing at the University of Auckland. That's why I make my living, and this is where I spend all the money. So this is the world's fastest electric motorcycle, the kilojoule. It clocked a top speed of 434 before I retired it this year.
Is this the one that's downstairs? There is one downstairs?
There are two downstairs. The kilojoule and the Green Envy are both downstairs. So I claim this is the fastest in the world. So let's put that in perspective. So I have a scale of speeds from 100 to supersonic. So I am somewhere there. And you can see there's lots of room above me. I'm just a tiny bit slower than the world's fastest production car. I am a whole lot slower than the world's fastest wheel-driven car. All of these are quite faster than our family car. I don't think my Nissan Leaf will even make that. Someone else's car clearly is in that speed performance range. And 100 years ago, the world's fastest car actually was electric. I think most of you already know that. The first car to reach 100 kilometers per hour was an electric car. Today's fastest electric car is in the 500 kilometer per hour range. And that's still quite a bit slower than the world's fastest motorcycle, which is my next target. All of these are quite slow compared to the world's fastest car, which actually has gone supersonic on land. That again is quite pale compared to the new contender, the Bloodhound, that's actually doing their first testing in South Africa as we speak. They're shooting for 1,000 miles per hour or 1,600 kilometers per hour. So you can see on the range of speed, I'm fairly slow and there are lots of records yet to be broken. But why am I doing this? Am I a speed freak? Everybody thinks I am. People that know me know that I drive like an old lady on the highway. If there's a traffic jam in Auckland, I am probably leading it in my white little Nissan Leaf. So why speed? Because people are amazed with speed. People are blown away with speed. People are interested in speed, and speed sells. And my mission is to promote electric mobility. Electric mobility is here to stay. We all know that. People ask me, is electric cars the future? No, it's the present. It's very much the present. And if you combine that with renewable energy, this is the house, our old house in Colorado. I wish we could afford something like that in Auckland, but maybe one day. But you combine your electric car with solar panels, you make your own fuel, and it's the perfect match. Despite that, this is a recent survey, it's somewhat getting a little bit old now, 2 years old. US consumers, I'm an American citizen, so I can make fun of US consumers. I hope Kiwi consumers are way better, but there are lots of US consumers, so we do care about them. 60% said they didn't know you could buy an electric car. There's no point in us sitting here working on innovation, technology, policy, and so on if the consumer going to the dealer doesn't know you can buy an electric car and they still buy their whatever gas SUV. So I had to do something. I had to get consumers to understand their electric cars. And I had to do something about this headset. Let's try that instead. See if that hangs on better. We need some innovation. Clearly. There we go. I think that will do it. So how do we do this? So the idea was, how about if we promote electric vehicles as sexy? Tesla already does this a lot. Bill and I started this long before Tesla. We have been in electric vehicles since before it was cool. So I've been in electric vehicles for about 12 years, 15 years. Bill's been in electric vehicles for about 30, 40, something like that. Since long before it was cool. So, how do we do this? Well, our idea was, let's build an electric vehicle that is so insanely fast that it makes headlines, that people can't ignore it, and that the gearheads that would just turn around and walk away if you mention Greenpeace will be interested.
We might have some of those just downstairs.
We have quite a few of those downstairs, and we're talking to them and showing that electrics is sexy. That's not my normal outfit, but I do clean up pretty well. And I've given it my own terminology. I call this eco-activism in disguise. And at 434 kilometers per hour, or hopefully soon to be much more, I get people's attention. So this looks like a giant factory team. People try to visit our facility, trying to do that on a weekday, and we back and forth with scheduling until we finally asked them, like, can you come on a Saturday? Saturday? Yeah, we work day jobs, and we have to take vacation if you're going to come and visit on a Tuesday. Oh, we thought you were a factory team. No, it's me and Bill, and we work out of our shed. And it's not just me and Bill, they're volunteers and helpers as well. But it is mainly the two of us. And in the kilojoule, I built about 80%. So 80% of blood, sweat, tears, and hours that went into building this motorcycle over 9 years were mine. These days, Bill is retired, so he is doing more of the fabrication. So this is the team, the kilojoule team. It is me and Bill. And we also have some awesome volunteers. This crew, Amy, Sam, Cal, and Steve, made it to Australia on their own dime to help us out race. So not only are you not getting paid, you want to be on the team you actually pay. Because if they don't pay, Bill and I have to pay. And I work a regular job. So the kilojoule made me, as was mentioned here earlier, the world's fastest female on a motorcycle, or actually inside a motorcycle. I lost that bragging rights last year, so I'm working on taking that back again, you know. Records are never owned, they are just borrowed for longer and shorter time, and I held it for quite some time. So, as you have understood already, it's not the motorcycle you actually sit on top. It has as much in common with a regular motorcycle as a Formula 1 car has in common with your family van. Pretty much nothing. We call it the same thing, it's nothing, it's same at all. So that's what it looks like inside. If you're about 5'2" or shorter, you will fit. Dee, maybe you should be the next driver.
I don't like it. It's too tight.
And I already told you I built quite a bit of it. So here's just a few pictures from over the years. So I'm from a family of engineers. And actually everybody in my family has an engineering degree. So this was all a genetic disorder. And here are some pictures from over the years. Building is what I enjoy the most. So this is my therapy. This is where my superhero power is welding. I can fuse metal with my hands. It's the coolest thing ever. If you haven't tried welding, you should try welding. It's super powerful. 3D printing is similar. You make things just to pull them out of your head and you create physical things. And this is the headquarters in Colorado where the Kilju was built. It is about 5.5 meters long because nothing bigger would fit in the garage. So that set the limit. That's why it ended up being a motorcycle rather than a car, because we simply couldn't fit anything bigger. So that's a bit of what I do. We kind of won't really give away what the next video is going to be, because it's going to be similar to what's in the VR, maybe not even as cool, but 1.5 minute video showing what it looks like running for records. So what I do, I run for world records. I don't compete in any normal events. I'm alone on the track. I race against the clock, and I race against everybody else in history before me. Not the people that showed up that weekend, but everybody anywhere on the planet or outside the planet. And the goal is just to set new world records. And the place to do that, the most legendary, is the Bonneville Salt Flats in the US. But there's actually a salt flats in Australia, which is the one you can see in the VR goggles, which is actually better. More remote, more difficult logistics, but better salt quality. So the video is a couple of years old, but you can see it's footage from the last 7 years or so, and you can get a feel for what racing for records looked like. And if you notice in the very last clip, I was actually opening a door in the side of the Kilju and putting my head in. And if you've ever worked on electric vehicles, many of you have, some of you have built your own, the thing that makes you most nervous with an electric vehicle is if it smells weird. An electric vehicle shouldn't smell. There should be zero smell anywhere. So if an electric vehicle doesn't smell, it's good and healthy. So what I do, I open up this door and I put my nose in and I sniff. And if there's no burnt smell, no battery smell, we're all good, and that's what I'm giving thumbs up to everybody. If it smells weird, then frenetic panic will break out, and we were trying to figure out what is it that's gone wrong. But it's all been good, and so far it's always been good. So speaking of smell and tech, so what is the kilojoule on the inside? It really is a giant cordless drill with wheels, just like any electric vehicle is. So we all know that electric vehicles on a conceptual level are very simple. That is shown in why we have so low maintenance on all our electric cars, very few moving parts and so on. However, trying to pack 400 horsepower into a very tiny vehicle is, I say, it's packing 20 pounds of shit into a 10-pound bag. It's quite a challenge in reality to get all these pieces together. I won't have time to talk a lot of tech in this session. If you want to talk tech, come downstairs because the kilojoule is on display, and so is its successor, Green Envy. So the kilojoule is officially retired. It's been racing for 9 years. It's basically falling apart from corrosion and rust, and it was just done. It has seen a lot of miles and a lot of abuse. And also, it was too old and too slow. So I got a new goal. So let's revisit our timeline here, or scale of speed. So you can see there's lots of room and lots of records to be broken. And I think somewhere here in the middle will be a nice place to be. So up with the supersonic cars, that's outside my budget right now, even if I have a vision, long-term vision of a supersonic electric car, because it's, if you look at the engineering, it's right on, it should be possible. It's right on the edge between possible and impossible. But that's quite a few years out for me. So somewhere in the middle, I would love to take the overall motorcycle record. So 100 years ago, the fastest car was electric. I think it's time for an electric to take an overall record. We actually kind of did. We took the sidecar record, but that was so minor that no one noticed. If we take the motorcycle record overall, all powertrains, that will give some headlines, and that will really give a boost for electric vehicles. So the new goal is to build a new vehicle. Green Envy is 1,000 horsepower in the first version. The target is 1 megawatt, but we can't really do that with existing powertrain and existing sponsors on board. The planned debut is in Australia 2020. If you've seen the frame that is downstairs, you will see we're going to be very busy over the next few months, because racing is in March, shipping is in late January. So I always get the question, what's the hardest thing with building a vehicle like this? It's not the engineering. The engineering is challenging, but not impossible. The hardest thing is actually to raise the funding. And maybe I'm really bad at fundraising, or maybe I'm just, I don't know. Maybe it probably is really hard for me to raise funding in general. But I need to throw in a commercial break. It will be faster if you get your name on it, and it's much cheaper than you think. Starting at $50 US, you can get your name on Green Envy. So there you go. That's the commercial break. The current status.
So are you crowdfunding? Are you doing crowdsourcing that money?
Yes, I do every kind of funding I can. About 90% end up coming out of bills in my pockets.
But if people want to support, where do they go to? Where do they?
I will show it in the last slide. greenenvyracing.com or greenenvyracing.store will take you directly to crowdfunding. So the current status, see, you're much better than I am at this. I should hire you, clearly.
Nobody leaves here without offering her money. That's fine. Minimum 1,000 each.
I couldn't afford to hire.
Darn it, I knew there was a catch. About a week ago, Green Envy looked like this. And now you can see it downstairs in the display, the kilojoule and the Green Envy behind it. So the goals for the Green Envy is to become the world's fastest motorcycle, full stop. And that current record is 605 kilometers per hour. And of course, the mission is always to show that electric vehicles aren't slow or boring. I'm going to throw in a few tech pictures. So in addition to working on packing all this shit into this tiny bag, Bill and I are also working on a quite exciting project, which is we're literally reinventing the wheel. They say you shouldn't reinvent the wheel, but once in a while you come to a point where the current wheel just isn't good enough. And pneumatic, so air pump tires aren't good enough for really high speed, particularly if you want tires for smaller vehicles. So We have worked over the last few years on a new design, a solid wheel with a rubber tread. We call it the Key Wheel. It's a tribute to the Kiwi ingenuity and our new home country since 2 years back. You can see these also downstairs. Here it is, the Key Wheel compared to the regular tire. And there it is installed on the kilojoule. I think it looks like something the NASA would put on the Mars rover. The only difference, if it was the Mars rover, there will be a Morse code in the pattern put down on the ground as you roll along. I would love to do that, but that means it will be out of balance, so it wouldn't be a good idea. So I'm sticking to just the pattern. And that's what it looks like installed on the vehicle. I'm an open book as far as technology goes. There are no secrets. We're trying to share everything we can. I am frequent on social media. I also have a website, greenenvyracing.com, where you can read more. And spreading information, spreading engineering enthusiasm and STEM enthusiasm is also the kind of the other leg of this mission. So the main thing is promoting the environmental side and making electric vehicles sexy. But another thing I do, because I am in education, I want to get particularly girls into STEM and engineering, because there are lots of good jobs, and we're also missing out on half the workforce when women don't go into engineering. So in addition to building motorcycles, inventing the wheel, working a full-time job, I also do cool stuff like 3D printing. And I 3D printed my own designer handbag. And this is part of just getting particular girls excited about engineering. So I wanted a Chanel handbag. Does anyone know how much a Chanel handbag costs?
Too much.
$5,000.
$5,000. Yep, that's about where it starts if you want this size. I didn't have $5,000 to spend on a Chanel handbag, so instead I spent about $5,000 on 3D printing equipment, which I still have. And I can use it for other things. So I designed and built my own, and this one has built-in lights, so you can find all your stuff.
Is that for men and women?
Absolutely.
I'm actually working on a man bag. I got a request, because this one is quite girly. And I've met guys who were jealous that also wanted a 3D printed bag. So it's on my to-do list, it just hasn't been enough time. But that one, the man bag will have a strap from a recycled seatbelt. So it will be a nice, wide, comfortable strap. And this is made from corn-based plastics. So that's one of the things I do. I also like to show my 3D printed shoes. And these are all designed in CAD, which is what I teach at the university. So that's kind of the other half of the mission, is to get kids involved in STEM and engineering. So my very last slide, because my time is up, is where you can find me on social media. And the last, and to answer your question, where do you go if you want your name on Green Envy? You go here, greenenvyracing.store, to get directly to the crowdfunding page. Or you can see more on my greenenvyracing.com. The best place to follow me for updates is Facebook. So if you want to follow, we try to update daily of what we do, progress. For example, if you go to my Facebook page right now, you can see all the moving pictures from yesterday, from setting up a Big Boys Toys. So that's all I have prepared. I hope that was some excitement, and time is up. It says on my screen, it's blinking red and angry at me.
Let's have a few questions. I've got one.
Okay.
Did you, before you came to New Zealand, you and Bill, did you see The World's Fastest Indian, the movie?
Of course we saw
Did he inspire you to come here?
More than once.
Really? Was that part of the reason? Because that's an extraordinary, that's what I was saying earlier, the inventive Kiwis, wasn't?
They are him.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You're the 2019 version, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't like to be as slow as he was.
But be as dogged, because nothing stops him. No, that's extraordinary. And for you, working in a world where mostly men are, not many women in any of this world, how do you find that? You're a real groundbreaker in that way as well.
It has mostly served me well. You run into people, of course, that have issues with women, and I guess you just have to change their minds. In general, people always ask direct questions to Bill. That's the typical.
Funny. They ask me about tires or something.
Yeah.
Ask Eva. What? No, she's the one who's interested in tires. Yeah.
It's terrific. It's terrific. Who's reinventing the wheel? Any questions from the audience? What a wonderful story. Rod.
Sorry, Rob Bacock again. That's absolutely fascinating story.
Thank you.
The power plant for that, is that off the shelf, or have you had to build that as well?
The power plant is off the shelf. If you compare the Green Envy and the Kilojoule, the Green Envy will just have twice what the Kilojoule has for powertrain. So the Kilojoule has a motor from Avid, which is a UK manufacturer of high-end motors, 2 motor controllers from Cascadia Motion, because the Avid Evo motor is electrically 2 motors. So it's an axial flux, permanent magnet motor, and they're stacked 2 on the same shaft. So run by 2 motor controllers, and then the batteries are from A123 systems. And all of that are off-the-shelf components. They're high-end components. I didn't say they were cheap. But the powertrain is actually the part that gives us the least grief, at least has historically, because it is off-the-shelf components.
Thank you, very interesting.
Wonderful. Are there implications for efficiencies to be gained from what you're doing in mainstream, that these things will cross over as so often happens with cutting edge stuff? Eventually it feeds back?
Hyperloop would be interested.
Well, Bill's saying for the wheel-wise, we think maybe Hyperloop would be interested, but it is because we use off-the-shelf components. It's more of just highlighting the technology rather than maybe pushing the technology, particularly on the powertrain side. The powertrain technology is so well developed. There is huge amount of resources going into it. All the technology is already there. And that's why I find it so upsetting that consumers don't know you can buy electric cars. Because electric cars are getting quite mature. But there's no point in what we're doing if people don't even know they exist.
Is there a lot of interest around the world? I mean, if you travelled, you'd be a classic on talk shows, and people would want to hear your story because it's got unusual aspects to it. Have you done all of that?
So people love to hear my story. The main problem when you run such a small effort, or a big effort on a small time frame and very little manpower and budget, every day I am away, I get slower. So I'm here at Big Boys Toys for 4 days. That's 4 days that I am not working in my workshop. It's 4 days of vacation of work. So it's wonderful being able to talk to people. It's a privilege. But the reality is, the more I'm out talking, the further I get behind on my own work.
Wow, it's that level of intensity. Any other questions? What a wonderful intensity and passion there.
So I have to carefully pick the events that are really worth going to.
This is the only one she does. This is it.
This is the one I'm doing with you.
This is all it. I know.
Yeah.
Could you stand up and just say your name and where you're
Hi,
from?
my name's Neil Hawks. I'm here with a company called Vortex Power Systems. But just the question is, have you done any wind tunnel testing?
We haven't done any physical wind tunnel testing, but we've done quite extensive computational fluid dynamics, so CFD or virtual wind tunnel with a Green Envy.
Richard Flay might be worth talking to because they've just installed a rolling road in the boundary layer wind tunnel.
So Richard Flay is my colleague at the University of
no,
Auckland.
he's my supervisor.
Oh, okay. So I've had 2 students working on the Green Envy aerodynamics. One of the problems with the sidecar class, which is why so what makes the Kilojoule and the Green Envy a motorcycle is that it has fewer than 4 wheels. That's the definition of a motorcycle. And with a sidecar on one side, it becomes asymmetric. And what you have done, you've created a vehicle that wants to turn right all day long. And if you just let it go, it's just going to drive in a big circle. And at high speed, you have to compensate for that some way. If you don't, you're going to spend your entire run trying to turn left. And that's very inefficient. So I have students that have modeled and concluded exactly how much I need to offset the tail to make it run straight. Richard Flay is actually the assessor on that final year project.
Any other questions? I'm just realising if you severely make redundant those jokes about female drivers. Quota if anybody ever does that to me.
Second Fred stuff. I just want to know, what are you feeling when you're going 300-400 k's an hour?
So you actually kind of seen it in the VR headset. So because the salt flats are so huge and just wide. There's no real sense of speed. It's like riding in an airliner, that you don't really know how fast you go. It's quite claustrophobic. I find it quite scary, the run itself. It's my least favorite part. People expect me to be a speed freak and live for this run. I don't. I always say it's complicated. It's a huge privilege to do it. Don't get me wrong. But it's like taking the final exam. You can enjoy the coursework. You're having a great time going to lectures. But if you don't take the final exam, all that hard work doesn't count for anything. So this is really my final exam. But it's a final exam while the world is watching you taking the final exam. So it's claustrophobic. It's fairly uncomfortable. It's hot. But it's, of course, an amazing experience in itself.
And you wouldn't give it up to anybody else.
And I wouldn't give it up to anyone else. That's the reality.
And Bill, do you worry?
Yeah.
Do you feel very calm?
Would
with
you
it?
say you worried about your husband?
I don't think he could stop me.
He's relented. Any other questions? The power of a woman with drive.
Neil Mans from Electric Jets. Just one question is, what sort of currents do you pull, like to that top speed when you're really going? What sort of currents are you pulling out of your system?
So in the kilojoule setup, we have a nominal battery voltage of 400 volts, and the max current we have drawn is about 800 amps.
And the new one will be double.
It will be double that, but it will be two separate powertrain all chained together. So the kilojoule technically has two powertrains. It shares one battery pack, two controllers, two motors electrically. The green enemy will double that, so it will be two battery packs, 4 controllers, 4 motors. But it could run on any of those 4 powertrains. And we've had, in the kilojoule, we have had a couple of instances where a little wire has fallen off and only one half of the powertrain engages. And I don't even notice that until I hit about 215 miles per hour, or what is that, 350 kilometers per hour, because that's what it will do on one powertrain alone. So green enemy will be about the same. It will run about 350 on one of these 4 powertrains. Actually, here's a short quiz, and I'm going to take time. If you want to go twice as fast, how much more power do you need?
What percent?
Don't ask Steve, he knows.
No, Steve doesn't get it. He doesn't get it.
10 times?
4 times. Is it square? 4? Yeah.
No? 8. 8 times. 8 times more power. So if you want to go 200 miles per hour or 400 miles per hour, that's 8 times the increase in horsepower you need.
Phenomenal. I just had someone in the audience say, I've never heard of her, and isn't she phenomenal? Isn't today phenomenal? I mean, isn't it really inspiring? Thank you, Eva. I mean, it's just wonderful. For her own, she's driven for her own just fulfillment, but at the same time with that bigger vision of how can I get this as a message out to the world about how wonderful EVs are. I mean, just the perfect combination. Thank you. We'll keep an eye on you, and I'm sure you will get some sponsoring.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That will make it faster, okay?
Yeah. I want my name on it.
What are your bags so for?
You have to build it yourself.
Oh, so the bag, you have to build a bag yourself. I can send you the files, but the whole idea is to get a hands-on experience of building things. I'm not really sure if you would need any more hands-on building, but the average teenage girl could use a little bit more of hands-on experience, I think. So.
Just as a possible fundraiser round, some of those up for auction.
We could do that.
We could do that. Yeah, we could do that. Good
And
idea.
she'd have to make them all. You should charge people like $150 just for the blueprints.
I mean, at the end of this, one of the things we're going to say to take away is that this becomes a whānau, this becomes a family, and this network can grow from us all connecting up. But maybe we should have a fundraiser for you.
Yes!
You asked me to get involved with money. I'll get the money for it. But maybe we could really support that. And
Oh yeah,
yeah.
On a cheap date.
I can.
She just puts all the money towards the car.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was really inspiring.
Thank you.
All right.
Well done.
Thank you.
So when that film is eventually made about the actual world's fastest Indian, you know, that the one who's now taken over the mantle, you'll all say, I was there that day, I heard her talk. I think it's time to redo that movie, as you say. And that's one of my favourite movies. Struck by these women that she can't actually join them to talk. I don't quite believe it. But the goddesses, as she calls them, are going to talk for 25 minutes about how we can make things better, how we invite more people of any colour, any creed, any religion, any gender to actively join in this kororo, in this conversation. And I absolutely believe that women, a Chinese woman once said to me, women are 3 legs of the table within a family. A woman who's really engaged and contributing and using her intuition, and the man who is able to listen to that, that really enriches a family. So when you take that out, you take it to society, you take it to business, you take it out and out. I think women have so often been looked past, and it is quite phenomenal listening to a woman who's inventing wheels and reinventing the Stone Age wheel, to think, what have we missed out on all these years when women have had to fight for a voice? And in New Zealand, we are much more, again, advanced in looking at, obviously women should be a part of the conversation.